Oh, she's good. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, she just got out today from her surgery.
Oh, you went ahead and did the surgery.
Yeah. Yeah, she had to get spayed so she doesn't get egg bowels again.
That's a lucky gecko.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are live streaming now. And we'll start in a couple of minutes. And if you have the hard copies, we're on page 347, 385. Day 20, suffering of birth. Let's see. Oh, we're way in. So we're almost done with day 20. So we're in the section about contemplating the 8 sufferings. Okay, so it's 7 o'clock, so let's get started. First, we'll set our motivation for doing the practice tonight. And in this text, Ambokam Rinpoche says, set your motivation by thinking, I will achieve Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings, my past mothers. I will therefore listen to this profound teaching on the 3 scopes of the Lamrim and then practice it properly. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen. And of course, we should think about all those on the prayer list and for the long, healthy, happy lives of our teachers. And as Geshe said, we need to not only think about all our loved ones, friends, strangers, enemies to have a long, healthy, happy life, but also to pray for the liberation and enlightenment. Okay, so we'll start with the Refuge and Budi Vegeta prayer. 3 times. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Okay, and then the short mandala offering. This ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers. Adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. O holy and perfect pure Lama, from the clouds of compassion that form in the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please release a rain of vast and profound Dharma, precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be trained. Idam Guru Ratamadalakam Niryatayami. Okay, so now, whoops, we're set up for the dedication prayers. Okay, so as I said, we are on day 20, towards the end of that day, page 385 in the hard copy. In the section Contemplating the 8 Sufferings has 8 sections, and we're on the first section, the suffering of birth. For the suffering of birth, the first thing to consider is the way to enter the womb and the 5 stages of development while in the womb, which are taught in the teaching Nanda about entering the womb sutra and others. Let's see. And if I could ask Karen to please let me know when Geshe comes, because I'll just keep reading until that happens.
Okay, I will. I'll watch. And then remember, everybody, if you have questions, you can type them into chat or please ask Geshe when he arrives. Either way is okay, or you can raise your hand using the reaction feature.
So please text Spiritual Programs Karen, co-host, and not to everyone in the chat. Suffering birth. For the suffering birth, the first thing to consider is the way we enter the womb when the 5 stages of development while in the womb, which are taught in the teaching Nanda about entering the womb sutra and others. At that time of conception, we enter into a pouch that is filled with impurities, which is like a small bag that has been bound shut. While we are being born and so forth, we experience great suffering. While we age, because of the cause of old age, it's necessarily afflictive emotions, our memory, intelligence, sense powers, color, and shape of all deteriorate, so that toward the end of our lives, it is as though we have changed human bodies, eating, lying down, moving about, sitting, and so on, brings suffering. Kadang Kamapa stated, it's a good thing that aging comes bit by bit. If it happened all at once, it would be unbearable. Jay Guntang Jampaya Rinpoche's proclaimed, these hairs are as white as a conch shell, yet it is not because my defilements have been cleansed. They are the arrows of spit from the Lord of Death, descending on my head like hoar frost. Great Fifth Dalai Lama has said much the same thing. J. Milarepa also stated, first you stand up as though you are pulling up a stake. Second, you move like someone sneaking up on a bird. Third, you sit down on a snap bag of dirt. Grandma, the moment has come when these 3 have been assembled, and now you are depressed by the deterioration of your illusory body. And first, your outer skin has retracted and wrinkled. Second, your bones protrude because your inner flesh and blood are depleted. Third, in between, you are dim-witted, mute, deaf, blind, and trembling. Grandma, the moment has come when these 3 have been assembled, and your wrinkled face is a display of repulsiveness. Thus, this is how it comes, the suffering of illness. Although you may be a powerful young man in the prime of your youth, when sickness strikes you, you will become weak and helpless like a baby bird struck by a stone. We lose our strength and are oppressed by the pain of illness day and night in this way until the end. To borrow things are disagreeable, and we must rely upon things which we don't enjoy, such as certain foods, medical examinations, and so on. We hope we will recover from our illness, and in particular worry that we may die, which brings us great suffering. If it is something like leprosy, our bodily health decays while our fingers and toes rot, fall off. If it is something like a stroke, even before we die, half the body becomes paralyzed, which we can directly observe. A suffering death. As I explained before during the section on how to meditate on aspects of death, the physicians give up. There are no rituals that will turn away death and so on. The earth, water, fire, and wind elements punctually dissolve. At this point, you should apply the explanation that I previously gave of what happens as you are actually dying, even when our great compassionate teacher was Prince Siddhartha. He witnessed a sick person, an old person, a dying person, and a bhikshu, after which he became repulsed by samsara. He became ordained and went from happiness to the next. The suffering of having to encounter the unpleasant. All of the unwanted things are going to happen to us, from the various types of harms that arise from the occurrence of a virulent illness to harm from malevolent spirits, the sudden manifestation of enemies and thieves, the punishment of kings being thrown from a horse, harm from the 4 elements, and so on. The suffering of parting from the pleasant. We will be separated from things that are dear to our hearts, such as our pleasing relatives, father and mother, guru and disciple, husband or wife, as well as children, and so on. We will suddenly be separated from our powerful status, our fortune, possessions, and so on, producing mental suffering. The suffering of searching for and not finding what you desire. This refers to all those who desire various things and try to obtain them, yet that don't succeed, such as merchants, farmers, the wealthy beggars, craftsmen, and so forth. as well as monks who wish for wealth and possessions through things such as village rituals. In addition to that, dissatisfaction, for the most part, they give out regret, suffering, and so on, and experience limitless types of torments, such as hunger, thirst, and exhaustion, and dependence on their means of livelihood. A teaching on the suffering of the 5 appropriated aggregates. This burden of the appropriate aggregates is the foundation for generating the aforementioned sufferings, and wherever you are born among the 6 classes of beings, from this moment onward, the suffering will come as an integral component of the appropriate aggregates. Therefore, you must develop aversion for samsara, which is the nature of the appropriate aggregates. Moreover, it is said that the place where we stay is also a place of suffering. The friends we associate with are also friends of suffering, and whatever enjoyments we enjoy are also enjoyments of suffering. Also, the Supreme 7th Conqueror stated, although you may observe the high or low, layperson or monk, man or woman, they are all the same. Other than their clothing, appearance, and the degree of their boasting, they are all exactly the same in having been born in a life of misery. It is said that these friends and loved ones appear to have similar fortune. Thus, being oppressed by all these sufferings is the fault of not being liberated from samsara, and if you wish, from this day onward, to be free from having to experience them, then we must employ the means of being liberated from samsara. Day 21. Geshe the Great stated in his requesting a blessing of strength, the gateway of engaging in all insatiable suffering. Since the beginning of samsara until the present, we have taken countless rebirths and experienced immeasurable suffering, yet there is never a time when we grow weary of it. And although non-deceptive perfections of samsara do not exist, still our attachment increases tremendously, like drinking salt water that never brings satisfaction. Once we contemplate how we are repeatedly oppressed and are constantly tormented by the 3 types of suffering, we should develop a very powerful mind that wishes for liberation from samsara, and the mind that is not attached to whatsoever to the best things in samsara. For that, we must contemplate the faults of true sufferings, the essential points of which are clarified in what is called the king of the teacher's instructions. The way to contemplate the 6 types of suffering has 6 sections. 1, the fault of uncertainty. 2, the fault of not being satisfied. 3, the fault of having to repeatedly abandon our bodies. 4, the fault of being repeatedly born. 5, the fault of repeatedly changing from high to low. 6, the fault of having no companionship. Furthermore, after taking rebirth in samsara, nothing transcends being anything but the nature of suffering, for which there are 6 faults, such as having no certainty and so on. Geshe stated in his requesting blessing of strength, the gateway of engaging in all insatiable suffering. He goes on to say that the 6 sufferings are included in the 3 types of suffering. From among the 6 types of suffering, the first is the fault of uncertainty. The fault of uncertainty. We act with delight in the best things of samsara, and although we are greatly invested in them, our friends and enemies, benefit and harm, and so on, constantly change. Therefore, we cannot count on them at all. Nagarjuna stated in his letter to a friend, the father becomes the son, the mother becomes the wife, and the person who is the enemy also becomes the friend. Because the opposite can happen as well, there is absolutely no certainty at all in samsara. As scripture states, eating his father's flesh, he beats his mother, he holds his enemy whom he killed in his lap. The wife chews on the bones of her husband. The things of samsara are laughable. This refers to previously in India when it is said that after a certain father died, he was reborn as a fish in a nearby large lake. After the mother died, although she was unable to take rebirth as a human due to the power of her attachment to the household, she was born as a pet dog of that family. The enemy whom the dog's owner had killed in a previous life was reborn as his own son. One day, the man of the house caught a fish and killed it and ate its flesh. He tossed out the fish bones, and the female dog had come to eat them, and the man of the house beat the dog while he was holding his son on his lap. While this great spectacle was taking place, Arya Kadyana arrived begging for alms. Having observed through his clairvoyance how they had all changed compared to their relations to one another in their preceding lives, the entire situation became clear to his mind, and he proclaimed the aforementioned 4-line verse that he begins eating his father's flesh. Although the householder Palke was born a king in a previous life, he was next born as a sea monster, and then by generating a virtuous mind was born as a householder, and so forth. Thus, we have no way of knowing about past and future lives. We have no certainty in this life as well. Shanti Deva, in Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, even in this life there is no certainty. In one instance, they become friends, and in a brief moment, they again become enemies. From the beginning of life to the latter parts, enemies and friends change. Nor should we place our trust in wealth and resources either. Friends and enemies change not only over the course of a few years, but even after a day or two. Although you may be an ordained person or a lay person of high status or low, someone will find fault with you and others will engage in slander. At first, they can't bear to be parted from you for an instant, and you are their dearest loved one. Then after a while, they don't even want to look at you, and you have become their enemy. They become hostile toward you, abuse you, and even try to kill you. Such things will happen even in this life. Jai Kuntang Jiao Baoyang Rinpoche proclaimed. Today, they are your affectionate friends, yet to the conceptions of a single good or bad word and superimposition, the next day they are true enemies. Sever yourself from adhering to prejudice. Previously, Desi Sangye Gyatso established a system of Tibetan politics and so forth. He had great influence and great kindness, yet due to disagreement with King Lasang, Desi's throat was cut, and for a few days there wasn't even anyone to look after his head, and even Desi's acquaintances became destitute. The fault of not being satisfied. This extensive sport sutra states, King, whatever divine sense pleasures there are, and whatever wonderful human sense pleasures there are, although one person may obtain all these sense pleasures, even so he would not be satiated and continue searching for more. Since there is no way to be content with the happiness and well-being of samsara, you will never be satisfied no matter how many enjoyments you have. We bring ruin to ourselves in this life. Therefore, in general, we must all have contentment in this life. In particular, it is extremely important that we who have become ordained as monks have few desires and conduct ourselves with contentment. If we don't, we will be like the parable of King Mandata. If we don't have contentment, then even if a solitary monk has 25 silver coins, he will want 50. If he has 50, he will want 100, and so on, and desire will continue to increase. Although we may have a pouch full of gold, we will not be satisfied because of engaging in commerce, farming, theft, and so on. This is a great fault. Even at the time of death, King Mandata was still not satisfied with this world, and his last testament proclaimed, there is no greater deception than this life. If you have contentment, although you may not have more than a pouch of roasted barley flour, you will be wealthy. Contentment is the gateway to benefit, the gateway where a rich man sleeps as he laughs at the desirous who don't notice him. Nagarjuna stated, always be satisfied. Although you may have no wealth, if you know satisfaction, you will be truly wealthy. Once a poor man found a priceless jewel and gave it to the king, saying that because the king lacked contentment, he was the poorest of all. If you have few desires and contentment, you will be someone who doesn't work toward anything other than the dharma. You will not exhaust yourself seeking the greater and lesser riches and enjoyments of this life. If you have results from your merit from previous life and dependence upon the path, powerful resources will come your way. If you renounce your practice of accomplishing study, contemplation, and meditation of the dharma, and instead strive for food and clothing, you are a lion lacking two. Completely pure monks should not even have wealth and possessions. Although we think that everything from our dwellings, food onward are the worst, if we are completely pure monks, we should not be conscious of such things, and we know how to think about things in the proper way, we will dwell within the four preferences of the Aryas. The Bhagwan Buddha was content with merely simple clothing and so on, which is part of the four preferences of the Aryas. The need to wear inferior and tattered old clothing is also a preference of the Aryas, as is simple tea and simple barley flour mixed with butter. Even just a place to sleep or sit is sufficient. As for fondness of forsaking worldly things and a fondness for meditation, this is the engagement of studying, contemplating, and meditating on the dharma. The teacher Buddha also stated, there are two activities of the ordained. One, reading, listening, and contemplating, and two, being a meditator who has renounced worldly things. All beings are brought to ruin by their attachment to auditory sounds and bodily tactile sensations. A deer, an elephant, a moth, a fish, and a bee, all five are destroyed by the five sense objects. If each one can be destroyed by just one of them, why would you not be destroyed by continuous reliance on all five? And if a butterfly and so on are brought to ruin by forms, each one is also ruined by the objects of desire. How is it that we who are attached to all five will not end up the same? The fault of having to repeatedly abandon our bodies. Although we have obtained an excellent physical form, it is excellent if we are capable of practicing dharma. There is nothing else worthy of our confidence. Indra is venerated by the worldly, yet he falls to earth again to the power of his karma. We have also been born as Indra and have had the experience of residing in a celestial mansion. However, at the moment, it has been of no benefit, and we currently have nothing more than tattered rags. Although we have become a Chakravartin king, even a Chakravartin king will become a servant one day. Although you may be born a Chakravartin king, you will migrate from that and become the lowest of servants in this world. If a Chakravartin king becomes a shepherd, he will have nothing more than a slingshot and a knapsack. Once you experience the happiness and well-being of having been born in the celestial realms, you will fall to the earth and be surrounded by the executioners of the hell realms. Nagarjuna's letter to the friend states, you will have to drink boiling water. And having obtained the extreme great bliss of the desire realm gods, or the happiness of Brahma that is free from attachment, you will once again become kindling for the fires of the deepest hell and experience the suffering of unceasing pain. Thus, being reborn as an Indra and Brahma 1,000 times each is of no benefit, and after we die, we must experience the suffering of being born in the deepest hell. Nagarjuna's letter to a friend states, obtaining birth as the sun and moon, the light of your body illuminated the entire world. Once again, you went into the pitch blackness, where you could not even see your outstretched hand. Although you're born as the gods of the sun and moon, that state eventually changed so that not only has that period of assuming the bodies of a Chakravartin king, Brahma, Indra, and so on come to an end, but not even the slightest bit of it still remains. You can extract more information about the grandeur of the gods from the supreme dharma of the application of mindfulness sutra. The fault of being repeatedly born. Although in general samsara is limitless, it is essential that we strive to end our own samsara. If that doesn't happen, it will be as Nagarjuna stated in his letter to a friend. Each of us has drunk more milk than all the water in the 4 oceans, yet an individual who follows the ways of ordinary beings still has much more to drink. Of Gosha's text, Dispelling Grief also states, even the water within the ocean cannot equal the amount of molten copper that you repeatedly drank in the hells. The amount of feces you ate when you were a pig and a dog would be much greater than Mount Mary, the king of doctors. Even the ocean would not be sufficient vessel to obtain the quantity of tears you have shed in samsara due to being parted from your loved ones. If you heaped up the number of heads you have had severed because of engaging in battle, their height would excel even that of Brahma's realm. If you filled the ocean of milk with the amount of manure you have eaten out of severe hunger when you were a worm, it would cause it to expand immensely. Although we previously experienced such things, if we don't eventually bring an end to samsara, we will have to experience even more suffering than before. The fault of repeatedly changing from high to low. Although we have been kings of a country and so on, we must eventually stay in prison. Since this is a situation, although we may have been in a higher state, before long we will be bugs being squished under someone's foot and so on. J. Guntang Japalyang Rinpoche proclaimed, if you climb progressively higher up the desiccated tree trunk of name and status, you'll hurt yourself when its feeble limbs break. Be content with remaining halfway up. Geshe Sumpua said, it is disconcerting to think about the many ups and downs you must experience in samsara. Our compassionate teacher also stated, the end of elevation is descent, the end of being born is death, the end of accumulation is consumption, the end of meeting is separation. These are the 4 conclusions of conditioned phenomena. Thus, the best things of samsara ultimately decline. Therefore, there is nothing in samsara that is not included in this classification. The fault of having no companionship. At first, when you are born alone. Finally, when you are dying in the intermediate state, in your future lives, again, you must go on alone. Although at present, our father, mother, children, our family, close friends and relatives, teachers and disciples, and so on are dear to us like our hearts. Yet we are like a crowd at a market that ultimately must part as a natural characteristic of samsara. Shantideva proclaimed in his guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life. When you're born, you are born alone. When you die, you are again alone. Since others cannot share in your suffering, what good are these obstructing relatives? Madampa Sangye also stated, loved ones are as impermanent as a crowd at market time. People in Dingri don't argue and fight. For that reason, none of the best things in samsara is trustworthy. Therefore, if you become a person who only practices dharma and whose only concern is finding food and clothing, that alone will have an excellent conclusion. If you don't extract the essence of this very moment, you will be carried away like a bubble on a great river into the great ocean of samsara. If you consider carefully these ways in which samsara cycles, although you may be easily depressed, it will be as the previous Kadampas would say, although an arhat engages in a single action, he has great confidence. We pretend as though we don't have a care in the world, which is the fault of not having things over properly. The suffering samsara are also the faults of being repeatedly born. Furthermore, it is the fault of not liberating yourself from samsara. Also, we are unceasingly tormented over and over by the 3 types of suffering samsara, which are addressed below. The 3 types of suffering. With respect to the suffering, which is a suffering we experience when illness arises, such as when we experience a sharp pain in the kidneys and so forth. When our stomachs are empty, when we have too much food in our stomachs and so on. This is also considered the suffering of suffering. Regarding the suffering of change, this is like having to stand up after having sat in one place so that you don't suffer from sitting too long, and then if we move around too much, again, needing to sit down. Although we may sit in the sun, after a certain point, we get sunburned. Once we have gone to a cooler place, we need to warm up and so on. After getting hungry, we have pleasurable experience while we are eating, but if we again eat too much, we become uncomfortable and so on. Once we think we are happy, it changes. The same thing applies to all types of happiness. Regarding the pervasive suffering of being conditioned, this is the contaminated appropriate aggregates. And for however long we must appropriate them, our suffering will never end. Geshe Potewa stated, as long as you are born in any of the 6 classes of beings, none of the suffering that occurs, such as sickness, death, and so on, just suddenly appears out of the blue. The person who is sick has the cause to be sick. The person who dies has the cause to be died. This is the characteristic or nature of samsara. As long as you remain in samsara, you have not transcended its characteristics. If this makes us anxious, we must abandon the need to be reborn, and to accomplish that, we must abandon its causes. Furthermore, this is analogous to having a hot wound and sticking it in boiling water, which is like being pierced by a thorn, which is a suffering of suffering. Taking your hot wound and sprinkling it with cold water, which creates a pleasant feeling, is a suffering of change. Having contaminated aggregates where the wound occurs, in other words, the basis for your suffering, to have a hot wound in the first place, is the suffering of conditionality. The term pervasive is described as being that which pervades the 3 realms. It is the producer or creator of all suffering that serves as a foundation for the suffering of this life. By functioning as the vessel for all our future suffering, it is the worst of all the types of sufferings. Contemplating the specific sufferings of samsara. Of the 2 contemplations about the suffering of the lower realms and the happy realms, the suffering of the lower realms has already been explained. For the suffering of the happy realms, there are 3 contemplations. Contemplating the specific sufferings of samsara has 3 sections. 1, the suffering of humans. 2, the suffering of demigods. 3, the suffering of gods. The suffering of humans, as I explained earlier, these are birth, aging, sickness, death, and so on. Moreover, there are many different types of suffering of all 3 realms, such as poverty, heat and cold, exhaustion and fear, hunger and thirst, and so on. Human beings even have all the sufferings of the lower realms. Also, Aryadeva's 400 stanzas states, higher persons suffer mentally, ordinary beings develop it physically. Every single day, beings of this world are overcome by these 2 types of suffering. The suffering of demigods. The abode of the demigods is in the water at the lower boundary of Mount Meru. The demigods are similar to the gods with respect to physical shape, enjoyments, and so on, but they are lesser than the gods in all aspects. Therefore, they are constantly jealous of the gods' power and grandeur and do battle with them. However, despite the demigods' attempts, they are defeated by a great elephant that protects the great mountain of the gods and then pulverizes them like dust. Also, unless they are able to cut the gods in half at the waist, the gods immediately recover from all their other wounds so that the demigods are unable to kill them. In contrast, whatever parts of the demigods' bodies are stuck with weapons becomes the cause of their death and so on. They are constantly defeated. Therefore, it is as if the demigods are never victorious. Even their wives experience immense suffering by looking into a lake called All-Seeing, where they can witness their husbands being killed by the gods. Although the demigods have great knowledge, it is obscured by their karmic maturations. Therefore, they do not have the good fortune to be able to perceive the truth of reality in that physical form. Although the gods have very little anger when they dispatch their troops in battle with the demigods are cleansed in water called the thicket of roughness, which greatly angers the gods. The suffering of gods. Contemplate the suffering of gods by considering the suffering of the desire realm gods as stated in these verses from Nagarjuna's letter to a friend. Their bodies become unattractive color, their seats are uncomfortable, the flower garlands decay, their clothes develop a bad scent, and their bodies break out in a sweat that was not there previously. These are the 5 signs that they will die and depart from heaven. Thus, there are 5 signs indicating their deaths. There are also 5 secondary signs that their death is at hand. The gods are called beings of the 3 times because they can see what karma they engaged in to create rebirth in the following 3 circumstances. 1, their previous existence that they have transmigrated from. 2, where they will be reborn in their very next rebirth. And 3, their current birth. Once the signs of death occur, they can therefore see with their clairvoyance where they will be reborn in their next life. They have exhausted nearly all the remaining merit that they had previously accumulated during their extended consumption of well-being and happiness as a god, so they can see that they will be going to the lower realms when they die, and as a result, they experience immense suffering for 7 days, like a fish being set down on hot sand. Therefore, mental suffering they experience is immeasurable, exceeding even that in the hell realms. Compared to being born as such a god, it is preferable to be reborn even as a beggar because you would not necessarily exhaust your previous merit and could accumulate additional merit to once again attain a human body. The gods also exhaust their merit, and it is difficult for them to accumulate new merit. We, however, do not understand the perfect way to partake of objects of enjoyment that is in harmony with any of the three types of vows that we have obtained. Instead, we currently consider possessions, wealth, resources, and so on to be valuable, and we place great importance on them. However, they cause our merit to decline. Shakya Ropé Dorje stated, now is the time to accumulate merit. Other than that, this is not the time to be intoxicated by consuming our merit. Chitzen Nawan Chogden also stated, if we place great importance on material enjoyments, our merit will deteriorate through their consumption. Although silk brocade cushions are spread out for the gods to sit on, others take them away and say, you should not sit on that. The gods with lesser fortune threaten those with greater fortune in cowardly ways, and when some of the demigods battle, they are killed by having parts of their bodies amputated and so on. A few of the gods with greater power fight those with lesser power, who suffer as they are driven from their homes. Although the gods in the higher realms don't have manifest suffering, they also don't have the freedom to remain there indefinitely. When they are born, they understand that they have been born in that god realm, and when they are about to die, they have a slight ascertainment through their clairvoyance about where they will be reborn. Between these two periods, it is as though they are asleep and they remain in a single state of meditative absorption. In some cases, they abide in a state of blissful concentration that is mere semblance of enlightenment for the same length of time as it takes others to live out a life in the hell realms, and then subsequently attain the state of liberation. Furthermore, as they enter that concentration, they think that they have already attained liberation. So when they rise from that state of meditation and see that they are going to take rebirth after all, they think that this so-called liberation doesn't exist and thus develop wrong views about liberation. Mistaking the peak of existence or peak of samsara for liberation, they once again go to the deepest hell through their wrong views. Thus, if you are not liberated from samsara, it will be as the previous Kandambas have stated. Although you may be reborn as the peak of existence, it is not different from taking rebirth in a copper pot of the lowest hell. Great being Lauri also stated, even while you dwell on the bliss of the gods, you are being misled. The superior conqueror, Kelsang Gyatso VII, Dalai Lama stated, the well-known three realms of samsara are a house of blazing iron. No matter where you go in the 10 directions, you're incinerated by suffering. Although it is a pain in my heart is the way things appear to me, the experience of wandering in such a horrible place saddens me. Who are reborn in a higher low station in this boat of samsara, it never transcends being anything but suffering. Therefore, we must discern to attain liberation of samsara by severing the continuity of contaminated, appropriated aggregates. Day 22, the great master Aryadeva stated, there is no end to this ocean of suffering. At any time, your childish being will sink here. Why have you become frightened? Once you contemplate how we are tormented by the three sufferings in this ocean of samsara, if you do not develop fear of that, you're extremely foolish and beset by obscurations. Therefore, by considering the way in which you have fallen into the ocean of sorrow, you will develop the desire to be liberated from samsara. The king-like instructions of the teacher revealing the means of liberation, consistent stages on the path to enlightenment that you're now listening to. In terms of stages of entering samsara, the teacher also taught true sufferings and true origins, and in terms of overcoming those stages of entering samsara, he also taught true cessations and true paths. This is the way in which he turned the wheel of dharma of the Four Noble Truths. Thus, you must develop a mind wishing for liberation from samsara. For that, you must train your mind. If you don't train your mind, it will be Geshe Potala stated when he said, guess who never reaches his destination, a sick person who never gets cured, and so on. Still, we have to stay in samsara for that much longer, which is unacceptable. By continuously meditating on the suffering of samsara, Kadampa Langre Tampa never laughed even once. Therefore, the others called him Black-Faced Langre Tampa. One day, a close disciple asked him, why do people call you Black-Faced Langre Tampa? Whereby he responded, stating, if you contemplate the suffering of the three realms of samsara, your face will never be white. Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva's Way of Life states, when their sandcastle is destroyed, childish beings weep hysterically. Likewise, when praise and fame decline, my mind is like a child. Well, Geshe is here.
Please have a seat. Yeah, please have a seat. Good evening. Good evening, Venerable Hamu. Good evening, Venerable Chuing. Good evening, Ryan. Good evening, Mary. Good evening, Lily. Good evening, Karen. Good evening, Panditji, Pati. Good evening, Yeshua. Good evening, Elise. Good evening, Renee. Renee Pepper. Good evening, Bodhisattva Patrick. Good evening, Romini Brand. Good evening, Peter. Good evening, Carmen. Good evening, Govinda. Good evening, Lee. Good evening, Helen. Good evening, David. Good evening, Mary. Anybody watching on YouTube, good evening. Sanje choda tsoje chonamla chanjo pardon dane jongje dake chuje jebe sanamji. Dola penje sanje sanje choda tsoje chonamla chanjo pardon dane. Dake chuje jebe sanamje dola penje sanje sanje choda tsoje chonamla chanjo pardon dane jongje dake chuje jebe sanamji. Dola penje sanje Tata Lamrim Nambianchi, Ombodan, Jajin Lasso, Chuju, Chawa, Sanjaya Sona Radoshi, Devi Juju, Tadashi, Tabeshi, Geshe, Namola, Kadam, Tubada, me, Kanana, Doga, Nana, Jazama, Tamjaki, Dogage, Chete, do Kangi Tuze, Tawa Tamja, Tambechi, the desert, Kodum, Tana, Chance. Oh, yeah. Any question, Karen? How many pages, Kamala, you read?
22, we're on day 22 now, and we read 22 pages.
Day 22, there's more. Oh. I don't know, one of them. Day 22?
Yes, Geshe.
How far are you?
Have we finished the quote from Shanti Deva about this sand castle?
Sand castle. Sand castle.
Yeah. When their sand castle destroyed, childish beings weep hysterically.
Yeah, then please continue to read if there's no questions.
No questions?
No, I don't see any questions in chat.
Sidi Chawa Koko Chawa Kajin Dukuchen Sujatsam Chanju Lamji Rimbadi Junju Jena Songs and not in mind. Kind of like encouragement statement from Shantideva, kind of encouragement statement. Mm, certain things that we cannot avoid. We have to cook, we have to eat, we have to clean, we have to take shower. Shower, probably you have to drive, go to work, so you have to probably do grocery shoppings, things like this city that whether we call it like meaningless activity or meaningful activity, doesn't matter. Whatever we call, there's something that we have to do. So in order to survive. So then, all these activities, like in development country require more. Even though everything's designed to help you to make everything convenience, in reality, everything becomes more complicated. Then, even though it's time to make things simplify, but it's getting more than simple. It's getting a little bit complicated. And like in my hometown, nobody has house insurance. Nobody has house insurance. There's no property tax. Things are much simple. If you own, you own. If you don't own, then you don't own. So, so there's no loan being provided. Nobody has credit card. Not even one single person has credit card. Now, probably nowadays, they have phones. So then there's some extra things to worry about, paying bills. And yeah, modern world, is complicated, a little bit more complicated. So then that requires a lot of, like energy. It requires a lot of your times, energies, and that, kind of like brings more stress or anxiety, fear. Life doesn't have to be like that, but life can be very simple. But because the whole society is living like that, so then it's kind of complicated. So it's all just to survive, just to keep your life. So I'm not sure you call this like, yeah, we do put so much effort. We do put so much effort on those things. If that makes you happy, so then that's good thing. If this makes things, all the effort that you put makes you more miserable, so then it's not that good. So what Shantideva was saying, if we put that much effort in meditating on spiritual path, so we can make some progress. Sometimes people get this kind of idea, oh, I should not worry about this, that, so then that's a little bit too extreme. So this life needs to be maintained. So the Dharma is all boils down to mindset. It's not about like, not owning anything doesn't mean that you are deep into spiritual path. Not owning anything doesn't mean you are deep into spiritual path. But owning a lot of things doesn't mean you are not into spiritual path. It's kind of complicated. It's not like that. It all boils down on the attitude and the mindset. It all boils down to attitude and mindset. So, of course, these things do require times, energies. So if we can direct that much energy into the spiritual path of meditations, then definitely you will make progress. Likewise, you make progress in mundane life. If you put that much effort, you produce some result. Similarly, if you invest that much energy and time into the spiritual practice, then you'll produce the same result. which will last longer, and which also have like a positive impact in this life. Of course, then you are more happier, and then so that, and also many more has a positive impact on future life. So that's why Shanti they were saying they need to, I say, balance, like otherwise, so then the concern is that you may not get any opportunity to do any form of spiritual practice that will kind of help you to liberate from the samsara. So you may not able to put you may not able to invest any of your energy or effort into that part. So then this is like considered as, according to Lamrim teaching, this considered as a great loss. So great loss if you are really seriously seeking liberations or nirvana. So then needs to be balanced. Okay. On the sutra like Simjinyawa Nyame Nyams. Simjinyawa Nyame Yidat Shinkomba Kombe Nyams. Simjinyawa Nyame Nyams. Yidat Kombe. Tuduchi Chise Nyams. Meta Chowa Tunge Nyams. Chowa Tunge Nyams. Meta Chowa Fata Pame how we like as a Milhata Pame by Nyams. Koa Kabitimun Devanamia Yuma is. She has some Koa le Tarchi Ritu Kandu Cheja Tamje Dungaji Rashile Mades. No matter which kind of realm that you are in, like even though the 6 realms, T raw realm, T hard realms, no matter which realm that you are in, but you are not free from complications or problems. So each realm has its own share of problems or complications. So then, especially in the human realms, Mita. Chowa Tunge Nyams. Each realm, there's explaining each realms how like the problems. So Devan now then can you read the next sutra, Amala, please?
Living beings in hell experience the fires of hell. Living beings in hell experience the fires of hell. Hungry ghosts experience hunger and thirst. Animals experience eating one another. Human beings experience short lives. Gods experience carelessness. Samsara is like sitting on the tip of a needle where there is never any happiness.
What do you say? What do you say now? It's just, we are just experiencing temporary relief, that's all. We are not really experiencing as uncontaminated happiness. We are not experiencing that. We are just experiencing temporary relief here and there. Yeah, if you're sitting on the tip of the needles, then probably there's not much happiness. Just to be aware, It doesn't mean that your life is going to be miserable. It doesn't mean like that. It doesn't mean that your life is going to be miserable. Certainly not. Certainly not. Certainly not. But expectation, unrealistic expectation that you want to be happy all the time, that's probably not going to happen. You know, we need to be realistic and we need to be practical. You know, we need to be aware, you know. So then when you remember the statement, composed by Shakyamuni Buddha in the sutras, and kind of like you kind of realize, you kind of recognize, oh, if you don't like that, there's a way out. There's a way out. Put some effort in that. You know, some effort that if you don't like, if you really want to be happy all the time, maybe put some effort in that path which will lead you to that ultimate happiness. So maybe it's time to invest some of your energy or time into that for your own sake. Or just to recognize that you are not going to be happy all the time because you are not free from samsara. So that's the fact. So it needs to be important to recognize that's the fact. So just that thought helps. Some problem here, some problem, then you realize, oh, that's the part of the package. So if you don't like this package, so maybe it's time to get new package. I'm trying to get new package. You know? So at least invest some energy, some time into that path that will lead to that goal, you know, at least every day. So that's what it means. You know, that doesn't mean that, if you are not free from samsara, you are going to be miserable all the time. That's certainly not true. That's not certainly true. Even though you don't believe in life after this, life before that, it doesn't mean you are not going to experience any happiness. No, that's not true. Here, everlasting happiness. Once we are part of the samsara, there will be no everlasting happiness. It's not just all happiness. You know, physical happiness, of course. You have physical body, you will experience physical happiness. You know, like having a physical form doesn't mean that you will experience all the time like physical problems. Having a mind doesn't mean you always experience like unhappiness of the mind. No, that's not true. That's not true. This is like encouraging and to be realistic, to be aware, at least to be aware, or like that I should not have unrealistic expectations. My life is going to be a roller coaster. It's going to be up, it's going to be down sometime. You know, so then how you say in English, live and learn. Yeah, we live and learn. Okay, so should not misunderstand this. No matter which realm you are in, there's complications. That is expected. That's expected because that's a part of the package. So then, due to the mindset, attitude, some people are able to bear more hardship because of their mindset, because of their attitude. Comparing, it's very too cold compared to some part of the village in Siberia and Mongolia, they are talking about like 10 degrees below zero, 15, 45 degrees below zero. Can you survive there? There are humans living there like year after year, like a long winter. In my hometown, when I was a little boy there's like 5 feet snow. There's no heater. Only means to heat it up, looks like to burn wood. That creates so much smoke. Not easy. So then going through hardship, then you kind of like learn how to bear hardship. Like, and there are also many teachings that helps you to deal, you know, like so everything's relative. It's not like, you know, so like some people even cannot bear any hardship at all because all their life they're so easy. So even though they can't bear any hardship at all, so that makes your life more vulnerable for any difficulties that you face. And some people I say, small comfort make them so happy. Small little comfort make them so happy. Some people, small comfort doesn't mean anything at all. Some people, when you went through a lot of hardship, then you appreciate more what you have, So then if you've been around with all this comfort and luxuries, so then when you go to third world countries, so then you'll face a lot of problems that you are not able to bear any hardships. There's no underdeveloped countries, everything is very impermanent. Not much rules, not much law, not much rules. People say, oh, we have hot water. When you go there, there's no hot water. There's no hot water. So it takes 35 minutes to get the hot water before you go through cold water. Sometimes there's no hot water. What you can do? There's nothing you can do. You're already there. On top of that, your mind can make you more miserable. You fight. You could fight, but the fight doesn't produce anything because there's no hot water at all. And you kind of wonder why in the first place you say there's hot water. So that there's many reasons that we could make our life miserable. So anyway, just to be aware, okay, this is just to be aware, just to be aware. Just to be aware. It's like part of the package. There will be complication. Either you become very, very rich, very, very educated. Still, there's complication. You are not free from complication till you liberate yourself from samsara. Tada rangre de longche bala dewal hombe dewal lomba di chowa dewa inja dunga ngine bali kowal dewa tende me chowa dewa. There's the happiness that we experience is more of feelings. The happiness we experience in samsara is more like feeling. It's not really produced by deep thinking. Deep things not produced by deep thinking. It's just more like feeling. So, for example, you carry the backpack on one side of your shoulder. In the very beginning, the pain is already there, but it's not very obvious. The pain is already there, but it's not very obvious. Then it's become obvious, so then you experience. So then you move from this backpack, from right shoulder to left shoulder, you kind of relief. There's just temporary relief. So then eventually the pain will arise in the left shoulder, so it's like that, temporary relief. But that's also better than nothing. Some temporary pleasure is better than nothing. Uncontaminated happiness, which is the result of deeper thinking of meditations, Whenever you are experiencing some difficulties, you have this mindset that helps you to deal with that. Whenever you are high, very happy, there's another mindset that helps you to bring down on the earth. No matter what, so that you have some tools to deal with, okay? Devata means here there's no happiness at all, doesn't mean happiness. Here they're talking about uncontaminated happiness, okay? Please don't make confused uncontaminated happiness. That's something that we need to produce. We need to create through meditations. There are many meditations. Koa Tata La Yinjua is. So now in the middle scope, in Lamrim teaching, middle scope, what is the most important piece of information in the middle scope is to has Koa Yinjus. Can you please read Ramala? I don't know how to say that in English. Koa Tata La Yinjus. Can you continue a little bit? So then I will ask you to stop.
Because you are not liberated from samsara, wherever you are born in the 6 classes of beings, they all never transcend being the nature of samsara. Although at present we claim to enjoy the object of desire, in actuality, they are suffering. Therefore, there is utterly no happiness in samsara whatsoever.
So that means suffering is a strong word. So according to Buddha's teaching, suffering doesn't mean pain at all. Suffering does not mean pain. Of course, pain is included there, but suffering is much bigger than that. It's not like pain. That's why I end up using this word complications. Complications. It doesn't mean suffering, doesn't mean pain. In Sanskrit, it's called dukkha. It doesn't mean pain, it means complications, okay? It means complications. Yeah, even though we experience some pleasure, like the pleasure, physical pleasure, mental pleasure, doesn't mean we are free from complications. That's exactly what it means. Once you experience the uncontaminated happiness, that means then there's like you are experiencing the happiness without complications. Here, to reach certain level of pleasure, physical pleasure, mental pleasure, yeah, we go to a lot of complications. It's not a piece of cake. Is that a piece of cake? No, we go to a lot of complications. So that's what it means, process or path to uncontaminated happiness is not complications. It's not complications. It's like perfectly laid out. It's not, there's nothing, there's no confusion, there's no complications. For us as a human, we are trying to achieve certain level of pleasure, physical, mental. There's a lot of, through the process, there's a lot of confusion, a lot of complications. The path to nirvana, there's no complications, there's no confusions. If you follow that path very clearly, seriously, the path itself brings you more happiness. It's not like it brings you more complications. That's true. There's no question. That's true. Lamrim meditations brings you more happiness, which is the process to achieve full enlightenment. There's no complication. There's no confusions. When you do, you feel good. Mundane level pleasure of feelings. To achieve that, lot of complications, lot of confusion, lot of complications. No guarantee that you will achieve pleasure. There's no guarantee. You may think you are going to achieve, maybe sometimes you don't achieve. Even finish all the process, it gets more complicated. But path to liberation is not like that, at all. Today, please continue.
This type of disenchantment with the entirety of samsara is the most important realization while training the mind and the person of middling scope. Jetson Kappa states the following.
Tamala, can you repeat that last? That's the one I'm trying to figure out how to say in English.
This type of disenchantment with the entirety of samsara.
Disenchantment. I don't understand this word. What is it?
All of samsara. Disenchantment with all of samsara.
What is the disenchantment?
Disenchantment.
There's English speaking people's responsibility. It's not my responsibility. This what does that mean? What that means?
Ishala, can it be dissatisfaction?
Dissatisfaction, that's not good translation.
Geshe, I
so
think if
feeling.
go ahead, Lam, please speak.
There's the English word. What does it mean? English word.
It's
What does it
a
mean?
feeling of disappointment about someone or something you previously respected or admired. Disillusionment.
Like how you use this word in day-to-day life? Do you ever use this word? What kind of sentence you make? What kind of circumstance you use this word?
Growing disenchantment with the leadership.
So that means more like another way to say.
You know, Geshe, I think when you say you're enchanted with something, what you're saying is you think it's beautiful or wonderful, or just you have this really like it's something that's desirable.
Okay,
So if you're
now
disenchanted,
that is getting close to the meaning. So that disenchantment means
then you think it's no longer desirable or wonderful. Like you become, you lose hope in its goodness.
like yi jung. Here the words, the Tibetan word yi means mind. Jung, never jung means like I say, oh, I'm so tired of all this talk about politics. Or you could say I'm kind of sick of all this talk about politics. That's like more like that yin jung. That means you don't want to talk about politics. You want to talk about something else, something nice, because this is like kind of like very sickening, or maybe kind of makes you sick. Tired, you're very tired. You're very tired of hearing, looking, reading. You're very tired of that, very tired. So similar, you're very tired of like samsara, very tired. It's not like that, really, like I said.
Is it disillusioned?
No,
Disillusioned?
I'm not sure.
Or disillusionment?
So Papa, I'm going to use this word, very tired of being part of samsara, not looking for freedom. Very tired. Angels like, if you don't understand, you never get tired, because you understood, then you get tired. If you don't understand, you never get tired. You think like, oh, that's normal. It's not normal. Once you understand what is samsara, you are talking about 6 realms. No matter which realm you look at has problems. You are just tired of knowing that each and every realm has problems, all kinds of problems, not just one, all kinds of problems. You get very tired of that for yourself and for all the fellow sentient beings. They are in that same part. So then you try and really want to liberate yourself, not just yourself, then also help everybody else to get out sooner than later. In June, with knowledge, knowing situations from top to bottom, bottom to top, top to bottom, inside out, knowing, so then you get tired, very tired. In June, call in June, so it doesn't mean you need to go somewhere else. There's nowhere else to go. It's not like to go somewhere else. You just stay wherever you're staying, you just stay there. But this all mental, it's all meditation, it's just all the thought process. Does not mean, some people misunderstand, doesn't mean don't enjoy. Of course you enjoy, because that's your positive result of your positive karma. What's wrong enjoying heat in the wintertime? There's nothing wrong, because you are fortunate that your karma produced this kind of circumstance, that you have heat. You don't have to experience cold. There's nothing to feel guilty about that. That's the result of your positive karma. You should rejoice and create more positive karma to help somebody doesn't have heat, help them like that, So And sometimes there are people, they call, what they call like a pleasure of guilt. How is it? What do you call?
Guilty pleasure.
According to karma, guilty pleasure doesn't exist at all. What are you talking about? Like what does it mean, guilty pleasure? What that means? According to karma, doesn't make sense at all. What it means? It means really nothing. Any pleasure that you experience, that's the result of your positive karma that you created. Nothing to be guilty. You must rejoice and wish that for everybody else on this planet. That's what you should do instead of like, what do you call Chuyina? What do you say? Guilt?
Guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
Geshe.
According to karma, doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything. You're just grateful. You must feel grateful, rejoice, wish that same level of comfort for everyone else on this planet. Oh, that's the way to do, rather than feeling guilty. The result of your positive karma, why you feel guilty? The result of your positive karma, why you feel guilty. If it means something different than I understood, then I'm sorry. If it means like different than I understood, then I'm sorry. So maybe my my understanding English is not that good. So, you immediately you feel grateful, thank to yourself that you created the karma, encourage yourself to create more positive karma. If you want to continue to enjoy that kind of environment, create more karma, positive karma, then immediately wish that for each and every being on this planet, just wish them to have same level of comfort that you're enjoying now. You create merit. Guilt doesn't do anything good. It doesn't create merit. So that's what you do. So then if you are going through some difficulties, then there's another set of thought you can immediately do. That's all called meditation. Meditation. So why all this to be explained, like each problem and complication of each realm? Why you go through each realm? This sixth realm, that is samsara. That is samsara. You may wonder, if I born in the celestial realm, so I'll be much happier. Yeah, you live much, much, much longer. But doesn't mean you are free from complications. So then we, of course, our mind wander all the time. If I become like this, maybe I'll be more happy. Because lack of understanding what is samsara. That's why our mind wander. If I become like this, if I have like like saying, if I have like always think about something that we don't have, could be better. Probably not, no guarantee. So that understanding of samsara helps. Samsara helps. And even in English, that you have saying in English, grass is always green, other side of the fence. Same thing. Like that. Why you explain this one by one? In order to seriously seek liberation or nirvana, first you have to understand samsara. What is samsara? If you don't have good understanding of samsara, you are never going to seek liberation at all. You are not going to seek liberation. You are not going to see the doctors if you don't recognize there are some kind of problems. Why you go to see a doctor? For no reason. Once you find out there's something wrong, so then you seek help. Exactly the same idea. Maitreya Buddha, in Uttara Tantra, Maitreya Buddha explains, Nene Shija, sickness is something that needs to be diagnosed. Neji Juni Pangjala, so then the cause of sickness is something that needs to be abandoned. That's how you're going to heal, Many dangers, the medicine is something needs to be applied. apply. Similar here, same thing. No? Then, like just of the so then Lama Tsongkhapa quotation from Lama Tsongkhapa here, the text, name of the text does not mention, but this is like a brief Lamrim or Song of Experience, the text called Song of Experience or brief Lamrim composed by Lama Tsongkhapa. When you read this text, then you find this statement in that text. Today, if you don't see nothing wrong with the samsara, you are never going to seek liberations at all. You never going to seek liberations. Because maybe you feel very comfortable in samsara. Is that good news or bad news? I don't know what to say. If you feel very comfortable in samsara, is that good news or bad news? I'm not sure. Huh? There will be no sincere, genuine desire for liberations if you don't understand the nature of samsara. That's the fact. It's not just religious beliefs, they're the facts. That's the fact. Only time you fix things if you know there's something wrong. There's nothing wrong. Idea of fixing doesn't occur, doesn't rise. Idea of fixing something will never rise because in the first place, there's nothing's wrong. No. Once you find out something is not working, so then fixing idea rise. So then more likely you'll fix, or you could fix, or you stall. Maybe tomorrow. So then it will never fix because you are pushing the idea. No, tomorrow never fix. But you, in the back of your mind, you know that something needs to be fixed, but get lazy or maybe like carry out by something else. So till you become desperate, so then probably you'll fix. Say probably maybe when you hit the bottom of samsara, then maybe you, it's like genuine, when you hit the bottom of the samsara, so then maybe you'll probably like sincere, like, or like the strong desire for liberation probably will rise, you know. Time to time you hear, you know, the family problem, this problem, that problem, that people get very tired, so they just want to go in like mountain, just meditate the rest of their life. That thought does occur because there are so many complications, one after another, seems like never ending. So then people like just want to go retreat themselves, maybe go somewhere. There's no sound, no nothing. So that's kind of a similar thing. So the same ideas that you get, like thinking about the downside of samsara. So then kind of like that same idea you rise, that even you don't want to be part of samsara, even 1 second. So then like strong desire for liberation rise. No, not easy, no. But I'm not saying it's impossible. It's very possible, but requires some deeper understanding. Okay, you don't have to believe. Just think about it. You don't have to believe. Just think about it. You know, so why there's no strong desire for liberations? Oh, maybe you are feeling comfortable in samsara, or maybe or maybe like samsara, you don't see samsara is there, no. So samsara, being part of samsara is not that bad. If you don't think about the problems, then you will never seek solution very seriously. If you don't think about the problem, seriously, and you are never going to seek solution very seriously. Same like fixing things. Oh, that's been broke. Like, oh, I've been thinking about fixing this. Or it's been like since last Christmas, I've been thinking to repair this. It never happened because you are aware that it needs to be fixed. Same time, all of us, we kind of know that we need to get out of samsara, back up in our mind. But we didn't take that very seriously, just putting it up, putting it up, putting it up. So till we become desperate, so then we think, oh yeah. Jesumba taba tuni, taba taraba, tundu nyatap, koa, korsa chotab, korsa chotab. So this is like how you say, message for all of us to seek to seek liberations and to eradicate the root of samsara, eradicate the root of samsara. Rang so penna sing chobala sing tsawa chogo taras. Koala tada koya tsawa chogo so sing chogo. Yeah, in order to cut the trees, so if you cut the root of the trees, more likely the tree will not grow. Similarly, if you cut the root of samsara, then there will be no more samsara. Tell us, in order to cut the root of samsara, in order to cut the root of the trees, first we need to know where the root is. If you think the root is like the tip of the trees, they are cutting there, there's no then you are looking in the wrong direction. You are looking for the root of the tree in the wrong direction. We think like this is the tip of the trees. So if it cut it there, it will grow again. So that's why first it is very important to understand where the root is. So then you can probably cut. Similar, what is the root of samsara? Kunju kowe juri masana koya tsawa juzu mejimes. Silengi ju choshe. Kowa kanga chimbashe. Silengi ju choshe. So the Tibetan text, sometimes there's like some same meaning, but same meaning but different word. So I've been thinking that lately, how that happens. In Tibetan, our education system requires a lot of memorizations. So memorize. So maybe sometimes you don't clearly remember the word, how it worded. You don't remember that exactly, but you do remember meaning because you have been meditating on that subject. You remember meaning. Then maybe you say the word, different word. It means same thing, different word. So now here, same text, different words. And sometimes then you kind of like, is this like really the root text? And so here the same thing here, like some different word here. So I think that's how the mistake occurred in my point of view. That's how the mistake occurred. Same word, different, same meaning, different word. So I think we Tibetans need to be more careful because otherwise, if that's happening again in many words, then maybe it's not good. So that's the only thing that somebody teach. They don't look at the book because they memorize the text. Then they say, probably somebody took note, and that's why that's like different. In my personal point of view, that's why the mistake occurred because you remember by heart, not remember exactly how it worded, but you remember meaning because you've been meditating on that long period of time. So then different word, but the same meaning. So now, then the next two lines, Kunju Kowe Juri Masana Koya Tsawa Juzu Bishibes. Kunju Kowe Juri Mas. Kunjung, that's the cause of all the complications. If you don't understand the cause of complications, then liberation will be a little bit difficult. So the Kunju Kowe Juri Masana. So then that means all the delusions, how it arises, how many different types of delusions, how that rise, what kind of condition, what kind of circumstance the delusion rise. You need to study all of that kind of preparations. Kunju kowe jure mazana koya tsawa juzu mishimbe sili ninjo choshe kanyi da kowa kangi chimbo shingbache shiesu. This is the name of the text didn't mention, but it's like the song of experience, Lamrim text composed by Lama Tsongkhapa. So in that text. So now that's interesting. This also helps this life. even though you are not seeking liberations, it will help this life too. This life, even you are not seeking liberation, this knowledge will help. Nimo about Jesus, how the delusion rise. So now probably better to Lamula will read the English, probably that's better English. So my English is not that good.
Tsongkhapa states the following about reaching this point.
Uh,
If you don't apply yourself to contemplating the faults of true suffering, you will never develop an authentic yearning for liberation. The method of
all of that, please know, you don't need to, even the Buddha said very clearly, you don't have to accept, you don't have to believe any of those. Just analyze. Is that true? Just analyze. Analyze, okay? Analyze. Likewise, when you buy a gold in ancient time, in order to get the pure gold, you burn them, you rub them, you cut them, make sure there's nothing mixed. So then you buy, then you invest your money. Same here. Before you invest any of your energy, you need to analyze. You don't need to believe because somebody said you can analyze. Buddha give us full freedom to do thorough analysis. We don't have any obligation to believe. We don't have any obligation to believe. So we have full freedoms. Our founder of our path give us full freedom to analyze. Not just analyze, thorough analysis. After that, if you find that's the truth, accept. Okay, that's the way to go about spiritual practice. Okay. And then,
The method of striving for liberation is also the means of severing the root of samsara. This is analogous to how we must sever the root of a tree in order to sever the tree itself. In our efforts to be liberated from samsara, we must sever the root of samsara, for which we must identify that root. In his Songs of Spiritual Experience, Lama Tsongkhapa proclaims, if you don't contemplate the stages of entering samsara as true origins, you will not know the way to sever the root of samsara. Therefore, cherish the knowledge of what binds you to samsara and a definite emergence from samsara and stable disillusionment.
Yeah, please continue, Lamla.
Contemplating the stage of entering samsara as true origins has three sections. 1, how the afflictive emotions are generated. 2, how karma is accumulated through those afflictive emotions. 3, how we die and are conceived. How the afflictive...
Let's go. Can you repeat the first one more time, this one?
Yes. Contemplating the stage of entering samsara as true origins has three sections. 1, how the afflictive emotions are generated.
Okay, how the affliction emotions are generated. Just think about negative thought. If this word is too fancy or too complicated, just think about how the negative thoughts are generated. How negative thought. No need to explain because all of us, we have our own share of negative thoughts. So how the negative thoughts are generated. That's why I'm saying this will help this life too, not just need to wait for all the way for next life.
2, how karma is accumulated through those negative emotions.
Okay, karma means actions. How the actions, physical action, verbal action, mental action has been created. Without negative thought, verbal action means nothing. It's nothing. Physical action means nothing. Mental action, nothing. Because the negative thought, then it makes negative. Actions become negative. If there's no negative thought, action either is positive or neutral. It means nothing. So then action cannot really produce result. Action produces result because of the negative thought. Here they're called nimong or delusions. In Tibetan what's called nimong, minute, the moment it rises, it makes you unhappy. So that's the meaning of delusion or nimong. Moment it rises, it makes you unhappy. I mean, mentally unhappy. So that's the meaning of delusion or nimong. So then the last one, death and
How
conceiving.
we die and are conceived.
Die and conceive, there's no need much explanation. That's the fact. Isn't it?
How the negative emotions are generated has 3 sections. 1, identifying the negative emotions. 2, the stages in which the negative emotions are developed. 3, the faults of the negative emotions.
So now this like text is composed by Pandit Chota. Dharma Kiti. Dharma Kiti is the one who composed this text, root text. Dharma Kiti. It's not Chanta Kiti, it's Dharma Kiti. No, it's all about Buddhist epistemology, all about mind and cognitions. This text is all about mind and cognitions, composed by Indian master Dharma Kiti.
The way in which negative emotions are generated is explained in the commentary on valid cognition when it states, the karma of one who has transcended.
It's not, that's, I don't remember the name in English. Dignaga, the master Dignaga wrote the root text. Sutra of valid cognition, something like that. So then this text is so difficult to understand because this old stanza so difficult to understand. So then Dharmakirti wrote commentaries. Actually, this text is also all stanza. Eventually, that also commentary become so hard to understand. So there's another commentaries on that text, So that's why there's commentary, because the root text you can read. Me as a Tibetan, I can read, but I cannot understand. So then Dharmakirti wrote commentary again on this Dignaga's root text. There's also stanza. Commentary is also stanza. So now that commentary also become harder to understand in my generations, or maybe generation before this, harder to understand. Then somebody also wrote commentaries. So then that commentary become hard to understand. Then somebody else wrote commentary, make it try to easier. Sometimes feel so fortunate. It's just already prepared. You just need to eat, that's all. It's already prepared. So then, so that's why the commentaries, but it is also, in the Tibetan text called root text, it's a root text called Namdel. That's a literally translation of the word Namdel. So then Del means commentary, but actually it is also commentary, but at the same time it's a root text because it's all stanza. The name, just for the sake of knowledge,
Is this a good place to stop? It's
okay.
already 8:30.
Okay, Lamrim, that's a good place to stop. Thank you very much. So now we do dedications. Ryan, I'm praying for your lizard. Okay, I'm praying for your lizard. So I hope everybody else praying for your lizard. Yeah. Think about Ryan's lizard.
Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may we quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantabhadra too realize things as they are, we too dedicate all these merits in the best way that we may follow their perfect example. We dedicate all these roots of virtue, the dedication praised as the best, by the victorious ones thus gone to the 3 times, so we might perform good works. We dedicate whatever virtues we have ever collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of perfect pure Losangdrapa to shine forever. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. One who masters speech at a very young age, one of great patience, received the name Avatare, the one with great precision, who spread the teachings of Lama Tsongkhapa Bliss and Void, Lama ornament of the yellow hat tradition, please remain until samsara ends. You uphold the subduer's moral way, serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjana's victorious doctrine, masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers, honoring the 3 jewels, savior of myself and others, your disciples, please live long. Avalokiteshvara, great treasure of non-objectifying compassion, Manjushri, master of stainless wisdom, Tsongkhapa, crown jewel of the sages of the land of snows, to Losangdrapa, at your feet I make requests. Om Taritu Taritu Re Soha, 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 Om Taritu Taritu Re Soha.
Oh yeah, thank you very much. And please stay warm. Have a wonderful night and see you next Wednesday, okay?
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Geshe-la.
Thank you,
Geshe-la.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Geshe-la.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Geshe-la.
Lamala.
Thank you,
Good night.
Geshe-la.